Hi Patriots, we're going to dive right into this video today and we're going to start by talking about your eyeballs. God gave us 2 eyes to see and perceive with and 2 ears to hear information with, and there will be those that take the information that they see and hear, they will move forward with wisdom and act upon that information. And there will be those that see and hear information and they will walk away, do nothing, and stick their heads in the sand. My hope for today's video is that you see and hear what's coming and that you move forward with wisdom and do the things needed to prepare for what's coming. And the rest we're just going to leave to God because we can't prepare for everything. So let's talk about how to fight back part 3, rations. And by rations, I mean your food and water supply. The content in this video is extremely important for you to understand. Every creature on the earth, including humans, can be controlled by food and water. Because if you don't have food and water, then nothing else matters because you'll die. Not only do I see and hear things coming down the road that are big, bad, and ugly in terms of our food supply, but we also need to be thinking long term in regards to being cut off from society and conducting business and being able to get basic necessities because we refuse to take the... All right, I'm going to quickly read through some samples of things that I see happening, and I want you to know 3 things. 1, these things are coming down the road. 2, a lot of them are already here. And 3, I could have given you 100 more examples. Let's dive in. To start, there is the fact that container ships are totally backed up in ports, unable to unload their supplies, including food. And the situation isn't getting any better. Supplies are being delayed for months. We have the passports popping up that will all out stop your ability to conduct business or participate in society unless you get the... President Macron just announced that citizens of France will not be able to vote, go to malls, like to buy clothing, supermarkets to buy food, or hospitals unless they have their pass. Think about what that means. They won't be able to shop for food or receive medical care at hospitals unless they opt in. And Italy is now announcing that they're planning on doing the same thing. Moving on. There is now a demonizing of meat and a push for plant-based lab-grown protein. This is coming from the elite, like Bill Gates, that have also coincidentally recently bought up a ton of farmland. And there's also talk of taxing meat and making it very expensive because it produces too much carbon, which is just utter bullcrap. No pun intended. Also, we have bills in states like Oregon and Nebraska that would make ranching or the raising of livestock for meat so expensive and tedious because of new regulations that it would basically put most smaller ranchers out of business. There is weather manipulation that has been going on for decades that can cause flooding and drought, wiping out crops and livestock, creating food shortages, and driving up costs. And we saw this happen in Texas with our freeze earlier this year. All right, this one has been going on for a long time and I have looked into it for years, and this is why I eat organic, but we have a huge push from Bill Gates and Monsanto for GMO foods, genetically modified organism foods that have not been tested on humans for safety. And it's my personal belief, and there's also evidence out there for it, that this is why we have so many food allergies. There's no seed saving at the end of harvest with GMO seeds because the seeds are programmed to die after one use. So you have to continuously buy more and more. And last but not least, GMOs combine the DNA from one species with another species, which is just inherently evil and unnatural. And here's another example of cross-species experimentation to prove my point. I also just heard that farmers are getting letters from the government asking them and paying them to basically just trash their food supplies, to dump their milk and to burn their crops, and nobody really knows why. And here is the big one. The Cyber Polygon meeting just happened where they do a fake role play scenario to see what would happen if we had a huge cyber attack that took out a major part of the supply chain or the electrical grid. And by supply chain, I mean that could be food, water, electricity, medicine, and other daily necessities needed for life. Here is a short clip from our favorite real-life villain who is so just weird that it's like you're watching a movie, but this is for real. And this is Klaus Schwab speaking of the fake cyber attack.
Pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack. To use the COVID-19 crisis as a timely opportunity to reflect on the lessons the cybersecurity community can draw and improve our preparedness for a potential cyber pandemic.
He is not a parody. He is for real. And we have seen this fake scenario situation before with the Transition Integrity Project. I did a whole video on that, and that was about a possible rather skewed result, and it happened. And then there was the Event 201, which was the future scenario where people got together to discuss a future possible, and then it happened a few months later. So now they're doing a future possible cyber attack supply chain disruption scenario. So what do y'all think is going to happen next? They're telling us, use your eyes and your ears. And this is big. A supply chain disruption would be like the great toilet paper shortage of 2020 times 1,000, only with a lot of death. We're talking about not only not having food and water and medicines, but also tools, gasoline, propane, and materials needed for you to work at your job and more. I also believe that a electricity shutdown or a grid shutdown, at least in certain areas, will be part of this, and that would be absolutely devastating because people are not prepared for that at all, and you're going to need more than a flashlight. So the question that may be going through your mind is why? Why would they do this whole cyber attack thing to shut down our supply chain and possibly our electricity? And it's because they have plans that they want to carry out, and if you and I are too busy just trying to survive and get basic necessities like food and water, then we're not going to have time or resources or energy or anything needed to fight back against them implementing this system. So let's move forward and talk about rations. I'm going to give you kind of a bird's eye view of what we need to do to prepare, but everyone's situation and location is so unique and different in terms of weather and what they can afford and what they can store. So when you hear me talk about something that seems right for your situation, then I'm going to put it on you to go and research it in more detail. All right, let's start with water. You need a long-term access to a fresh and clean water supply. That means rivers, lakes, streams, creeks, a private well that does not get supplied by city-run electricity. Those are all options for long-term water. You will most likely not have access to a municipal water supply, and that is a supply of water that comes from your city or town. And that could be for two possible reasons. One, the quote-unquote cyber attack will take it out, or two, down the road, they will require compliance in their new system, which means you'll need to be using their digital currency to receive water service. I know that sounds crazy and you may think I'm a big old conspiracy theorist, but it's already happening right in front of your face in places like France and Italy. Alright, so here's the dig. If you don't have access to a natural water source that can supply you with long-term clean and fresh water, or live in a place that rains often and you have the system to capture that rain and filter it to be able to drink it and use it, then you may have to move. And I know that sucks, but this is the reality of our situation. Or you may end up in a FEMA camp. That is a choice that you have. But it's not a choice I would recommend because they will give you food and water, yes, but you will be required to be, and you will be 100% under their control. One temporary solution that you may look into is having 55-gallon drums of water stored on your property. These are big drums made of plastic usually. Once they're filled, they weigh about 400 to 500 pounds, so don't think that you're going to move them around. But you can fill up these drums and have a couple of them on hand, and that could get you by for a few weeks, up to a few months. And if you can capture the rain, maybe even further than that. But remember that they are made of plastic, and storing water in plastic isn't great, but you can also add a chemical to make the water drinkable. I don't recommend that, but at the very least, just try to find 55-gallon drums that are made of food-grade plastic, and that will be your best bet. If you need to filter a natural water source like a creek or a stream or a river, I recommend Berkey water filters. I own 3 of these filters and I've used them for 8 years to filter my tap water. And we also have a natural water source where I live, so I'll be using them for that when the stuff hits the fan. But they don't require electricity. They're a gravity-fed filter. And if you go to the specific website, usaberkeyfilters.com, you can use my code GoodPatriot5 for an extra 5% off your order. And make sure you read over their frequently asked questions page to make sure that that filter is right for your situation. All right, y'all, I want you to YouTube or BitChute or whatever platform you use to research video information, rain capture systems. I don't know much about these, but they are absolutely necessary for our situation going forward, whether you live in an area that rains a lot or very little. I briefly mentioned that they have been manipulating the weather for decades, and that is a whole nother video, and there's all that information out there for you to research on your own. But I want you to think, if you live in an area that rains a lot, I want you to act as if you are living in an area that is not going to be raining a lot, because we don't know what they're going to do with the weather. For those of you that have a pool and you are thinking that you are good because you have hundreds of gallons of water in your backyard, let me remind you of something. That water is full of salts and acids that will destroy water filters. So do not think that you're going to take a bucket of water from your pool and then put it through your Brita filter in your refrigerator and be good for your drinking water. That is not the case. That water can be used for bathing and washing dishes, but do not drink it. And make sure you research what it would take to make that water drinkable. And my guess is that you're going to have to distill it. So I want you to research on what it would take in your situation to distill water. Now let's talk about food. Look at these posters from World War II. The government has gone from being totally proactive in making people independent from them to being completely obsessed with making us dependent completely on them. And folks, that is a danger zone. You can grow it, can it, freeze dry it, buy it, or store it, but just make sure that you can feed yourself if you are cut off from buying foods in conventional ways like through restaurants or grocery stores. Again, countries in Europe are already threatening this if you don't get the Fauci ouchie, or as I like to call the Satan serum, and that will be coming here. Some ways to grow and keep food you may want to investigate further are aquaponics, hydroponics, growing microgreens, greenhouse gardening, preserving in old school ways like canning, salting, and dehydrating, and freeze-drying food, which is one of my favorite methods for when you don't have the climate for growing food most of the year. I want to go into a little more detail about freeze-drying because this is the route that my husband and I have chosen to take with our food storage. We live in Texas. The weather can be very harsh. Now, you can look for videos that teach you how to grow food in very hot climates and grow food in very cold climates. So don't think that it's not possible, but I personally just don't have the time to commit to that process. So we went the freeze dryer route. We ended up making the investment in a freeze dryer because one, I've got food allergies, thanks GMOs, and I like to eat organic, and freeze-dried organic gluten-free fruit is very expensive, so we knew that the machine was going to pay for itself rather quickly if we bought our own and did our own food. I also wanted to make food that I would want to eat during the zombie apocalypse. And most freeze-dried food lasts up to 25 years, so it's a good investment. It also retains most of its nutritional value, I think like 97%. You can make whatever you want. It's very light and easy to transport. Can you imagine if you did all canned food and you have to like move your location? Can you imagine moving all those cans? Freeze-dried food, you could put like 100 in a black trash bag and just throw it over your shoulder and be good to go. Also, we use the freeze-dried food we make as meals. Like if I am tired and I don't feel like cooking dinner, I can literally grab a packet of chicken tikka masala that I freeze-dried the other week and add hot water to it, and boom, dinner's ready. So it's not just for, apocalypse scenario type food. You can use freeze-dried food anytime. We have snacks. We do like roasted squash chips and mango strips. And I mean, there's so many things that you can freeze-dry that I just think it's awesome. And right now, since the powers that be are threatening the entire meat industry, I've been concentrating on freeze-drying a lot of meat and like beef and chicken. And here is me making some bolognese sauce. It's like a meaty marinara sauce the other night. So here we have cooking the meat sauce, and I got 4 full trays out of that, and I put it in the freezer overnight. And then I put it in the freeze dryer for about 24 hours, and here I am checking to make sure that it is done. And it is. So what I did was break it up into pieces, which I know do not look super appetizing. Here we go. But they will taste great during the commie apocalypse or when you're busy. I put them in Mylar bags with an oxygen absorber, and there you go. 6 meals for 2 people. All right, so if y'all are interested in buying your own freeze dryer, I have a direct link to the website below in the comments of this video for a Harvest Right freeze dryer. And I also, if you don't want to deal with making your own freeze dried food, or you don't have the initial money for the investment of buying a freeze dryer, you can always just buy freeze dried food. And for that, I have a link to my Patriot Supply. Neither one of these companies are paying me to talk about them, and neither one of these companies are sponsoring this video or anything. These are things that I have used personally, invested my own money in, and I'm sharing them with you because I know that they're great. And those two links are my links. They will earn me a small commission at no cost to you, and that is how I get paid. I work full time to bring you information, and so sometimes I offer affiliate links, or I say buy a t-shirt, and that is the only way I make money. And I am not walking on streets of gold here. So, so I hope you don't mind using that link if you want to purchase or do your own freeze-dried food. And you can also find those links on my website support page. Thank you. A few other tips for your food supply. Consider buying in bulk with friends so you get better pricing on food. Also, see if you can split up the food producing activities like gardening and canning with your trusted network. Like one person does the gardening and the other person does all the canning from that harvest. And also make sure that you want to shoot for at least 3 to 6 months worth of food and water in your house. At the very least, when you go to the store and something is on sale, if you can afford it, buy a lot of it and then vacuum seal it and freeze dry it, put it away. Don't buy 1 or 2 jars of spaghetti sauce, buy 4 or 5. Do whatever your budget will allow, and make sure to buy food that you already eat. I learned this a long time ago. I grew up in Southern California, the earthquake capital of America. Okay, so growing up then, we were always ready for the big one. And when my husband and I first got married, we went to Costco and bought a big old 12-pack, 16-ounce jar of strawberry jam. And that jam ended up in the trash because we normally don't eat strawberry jam, and it expired and went bad. So buy things you normally eat. Things you may eat normally that have a better shelf life are dried pasta, rice, dried beans, beef jerky, dried fruit, canned soup, or box soup, whatever they're doing nowadays. Okay, and I almost forgot, super important, backyard chickens. If at all possible, get backyard chickens. 1 chicken lays an egg a day, on average, depending on the weather. And if your HOA says no, tell them to cluck off. Cluck off, okay? Just, if you can get chickens, if at all possible, do it. And also chocolate. Sorry, these are like afterthoughts. I'm just done filming, but prepping doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be intentional so it gets done. For an additional resource about food, look up Ice Age Farmer on YouTube. He speaks on not only how to grow food, but current news on the threats of food and water shortages. Check out his video titled Water, Making the Most of It, Growing in the Mega Drought. That video has a ton of great information on how to grow food with limited resources like money and water. If anything, the pandemic taught us that overnight things can change and grocery store shelves can be emptied. And y'all, if the pandemic and the whole last year haven't taught you to have some extra food and water on hand, what is you doing? I don't want to give you a hard time, but guys, we are living in a completely different world now. Like, your priorities need to be food and water above, you know, like subscriptions to cable and having the best new outfit or whatever. Like, because here's the thing, you can have the most beautiful big house and the fastest car and the most beautiful clothes and all the books in the world, but if you can't drink and eat, none of that's gonna matter. So for those of you that are like, oh, we don't have the money, but you're like drinking Starbucks every day and everything, like, I don't want to hear that crap, okay? And I'm going to be like big sister tough right now. You got to get your act together and make this a priority. Like, if you're saying that you don't have enough money to buy food, and I'm not talking about those of you that are actually really struggling financially, okay? I'm not talking to y'all. I'm talking about the people that are living pretty good. They're like, you know, middle class America here, paying their bills and everything, and they're like, oh, we don't have the money, sorry. Yeah, you do. Find it and get it done. For those of you that literally do not have an extra dime to your name and you're barely making it as it is, please don't panic and be fearful. You know, God can take care of you in those times, and I want you to think outside the box. You may know of a church or a facility or a group of people that you know that could be able to help you with food and water when the time comes, and in exchange, you can offer them your time, your labor, your skills, your experience, your knowledge. You know, in this time, it's not all going to be like food, water, ammo. It's also going to be experience, skills, knowledge, you know, like tying knots. I don't know. Think outside the box. Don't be defeated. Okay? All right, Patriots, we are in a controlled demolition of all the basic systems that we know of up until this point. So be independent from government by creating a food and water supply for yourself so you don't have to rely on them in hard times, because we know, and it's been shown through the last year, that they do not have our best interests at heart. This video was not made to scare you or put fear into you. I don't want you to think it that way. I want you to make this fun, make it an adventure, make it a game. You know, what things can I find on sale that I could buy this week? You know, how can I tweak my budget to allow me to buy extra food and water? Where can I store this in my already probably overcrowded house? You know, have your kids look for coupons and stuff like that. Just make it an adventure and keep it fun and light, okay? God's going to take care of us in one way or another, but we have a responsibility as well. Like, you don't just sit home all day and think, well, God's going to supply me with income to pay all my bills. No, you have a job, right? Well, it's the same with food and water and prepping. It's like, yes, God can supply supernaturally, but you also have a responsibility, if you have the resources to do so, to go and get extra food and water so you're not a burden to people around you. And in all our pursuits of self-preservation, do not forget the number one thing. And I feel like God's been telling me this over the last few weeks, is do not get distracted from our number one purpose of being a light in the darkness and sharing Christ with people. Because we could have all the food and water in the world, but if people don't have Jesus, then they don't have anything. All right, I'm going to leave you with those words. Oh, by the way, did I tell you to buy some extra food and water? I'm trying to drive it in, guys, because I love you. Anyway, if you like this video, please share it with people that need to hear the message. And if you want to support me further, please go to my website, sign up for my email list. You can buy a t-shirt. And if you are interested in buying anything freeze-dried, whether it be a dryer itself or the freeze-dried food ready to go, please use those links below. I'm Good Patriot. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again soon, and God bless.